In this presentation, we will take a look at company preferences related to reminders within QuickBooks Pro 2019. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. Here we are in the software with the Home tab. We're going to go back to the Preferences in the Edit drop-down and go to Preferences if this is not open already. Within the preferences, last time we were taking a look at the payroll and employee preferences. We are now going to go to the reminders preferences. Now the reminders preferences can have a lot of good uses, but it can also be annoying too to have the reminders because they're going to give us some pop-ups and reminders about certain things. We are in the My Preferences tab. We're going to keep this as the default to show reminders list when opening company file. We're going to keep that on No. If we do want to see the reminders, it could be useful for us to open the file and say, okay, do I want this reminder on here or not? Because if you have the reminders all on, then oftentimes you'll just start to dismiss them, just turn off every reminder. If you always are using the reminders constantly and you're looking at them and saying which reminder is relevant and going over the list of reminders, then it can be a very useful tool. So it's just really how you're going to use the reminders. If you want to see the reminders list as it pops up and adjust them to help with the process, then it could be useful to have this checked. We will not have it here for our example problem. We're going to go to the company preferences. Now here's a lot of these reminders, again, are going to be good reminders, but they're not going to be good really if we're going to be entering data for a long list of data oftentimes, or if we're entering data like we are here to an example problem. So for us, we're going to turn off most of the reminders, if not all of the reminders. But let's go through them because you may want them as the preferences as you go through this. So some of them are really good. So checks to print. So we're going to say checks to print 5 days before check date. So this could be a useful reminder to have. Again, if we're entering all the data at one time, these date reminders aren't going to be useful for us typically, and we're going to not have them. Checks to print 5 days before check date. Again, we're not going to turn that on for us. It could be useful. Invoices, credit memos to print. Again, it's going to be 5 days before invoice date. So we want to be able to print these items before the invoice date. Overdue invoices 5 days after the due date. And of course, we could set the dates as whatever we want here. So if it's past the overdue date, we want to have overdue invoices give us a warning so we can look into those. We can have almost due invoices. Sales, we'll keep that as a default. Sales receipt to print. So when we make the sales receipts, which are kind of like an invoice, but a sales receipt rather than go into an accounts receivable, it's going to be something that we're going to receive payment, and oftentimes we would want to print it. So we might have those as has been printed or not. We're going to say that no, we don't want the reminder on that. Inventory to reorder. This could be useful in tracking us when we get low on inventory. It'll tell us, hey, we need a reorder of the inventory. I'm going to turn it off here for now for our purposes. So we're basically going to turn off all the warnings for the practice problem. Reason being for this is that sometimes in a practice problem, we'll enter things a little bit out of order than we would in normal ordering, just so we can group things together in a way that will make most sense for a practice problem. Bills to pay, again, this is going to be days before the due date. This can be useful for us to organize our bills, and it's really useful for us to basically, if we can enter all the bills, get in the practice of entering all the bills, and then get some kind of system of when we're going to pay the bills so we can manage our cash flow. So it's nice, rather than just waiting on the bills, of course, just having them and not entering them into the system. It's nice to enter them in the system and then be able to organize exactly, when we want to pay them in order to manage the cash flow in that way. We here are going to turn off that warning. Memorize transactions due 5 days before due. Again, very useful in certain circumstances to have that in the case to give us that warning. Money to deposit could give us a warning that, hey, we need to deposit money. We're going to go through the process here when we enter information into the deposits. We're going to enter the deposits first that we would collect in the store, and then we're going to go to the bank and deposit them. So we're going to have this kind of holding account where we have like checks on hand or money on hand that's not in the bank yet. And it might be useful for us to have that telling us, hey, we need to deposit that money. We have money, the system is saying, that's not in the checking account. And this could be a good warning as well for us if we kind of miss that step, because it's often a place where people have problems to have something in this kind of holding account. So telling us that we have a deposit needed could be useful. We're going to turn it off here though. Purchase order to print. Again, the purchase order could be something that we create, and then of course we're going to have to print it typically to ship it. So it might give us that default to print it. We're going to turn that off. To-do notes, we're going to turn that off. We could use notes within QuickBooks and give us reminders within QuickBooks sometimes of custom reminders, which can be useful. Again, all these tools can be very useful. When we're using a practice problem as we are here, we're going to turn these off within the practice problems, especially these dealing with dates, because when you're entering all the information in one time period, that say a year's worth of data into a time period, or data that's not in the current time period, some of these date items could be not helpful or be popping up when we don't want them, or it's wasting some time. So these are really areas where you want to go through and say which of these type of warnings would be things that are useful to me, which type of these date warnings would be best, and you can really customize these to your preferences in terms of your personal preferences on how you would want to use them and company preferences. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info.